Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your schools.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Ryan Kairalla from Academica Media. We are happy to be joined this week by Telannia Norfar. Oh, look at that. She's already smiling. I know this is going to be a good interview. Telannia, let me tell you a little bit about her. She's a national board-certified math teacher and the curriculum director of PBL Works, a nonprofit organization that endeavors to help teachers and school leaders facilitate quality project-based learning. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting www.plworks.com. Telannia, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ryan. This is amazing. I love everybody. People know that about me very quickly. And so I'm so excited to be here to talk about, especially big ideas in education. But education in general, I am loving. But I definitely love the big ideas part.
Well, I would say of the biggest ideas in education, PBL is right up there. I mean, at least for me personally, I have a big place in my heart for project-based learning. I love this model. I try to incorporate PBL as much as I can with my own students. I am often trying to get other teachers to embrace this type of learning. And so I know I love PBL, and it sounds like you do too. What do you love most about project-based learning? Why? And why do you think it's so effective as a teaching tool?
Oh my God. Okay, so that two questions actually fold together in my answer perfectly. So I started teaching and found out about PBL immediately. Like it was the very first thing they told me that we do as a school. And so I immediately jumped into it because that's what we're supposed to do as a school. And just the love of the experience in my classroom by the students, that they just weren't that typical, when you see any movie in school, kids don't look like they ever want to be in the classroom. All the fun is happening in the hallway and the cafeteria. But in the classroom, everybody looks really sad and bored. But I was basically transformed, and I'm that classroom in the cafeteria and the hallway. And so how could you stop doing something like that? How could you not want to go to work when you have kids who are into it like that? And the learning is so deep. So between those two, I can't stop. I only stopped being in the classroom to come out here and help others do it.
Right. You saw something that worked and you wanted to bring it to as many people as possible, which I imagine is the reason why you got connected with PBL Works to kind of expand this model into more schools to get more teachers to embrace it. How did you get involved with this organization? Is there a cool backstory there?
Oh my God, it's so funny. Okay, so um this seems strange because I'm just every once in a while I'm sort of like it's 2024. There are teachers who weren't even born when I started.
Oh
But
my.
in 2005 when I started, again, I was at this school that said they were PBL school. Unfortunately, I didn't do any training, so I had to start trying to learn. But I'm a journalist by trade, so I was used to researching and trying to figure things out. But again, for people who weren't around in 2005 as like an adult, like searching then was still hard. Like the internet was not the way it is now. It was really school of hard knocks. So I searched. Thankfully, the second year I taught, it used to be called Buck Institute for Education before it switched to the name PBL Works. And so they had came to my school district, but unfortunately, I couldn't even make the training. I had to go to a different training because I was a math teacher and we were implementing something new. So a great counselor in my school got me a book. Like she hoodwinked and got an extra book and got it for me. And so like I fell in love. And then 2 years later, it's so funny. I fell in love with them. But then less than 2 years later, I was at the ISTE conference. Many people know ISTE is International Society for Technology and Education. And I happened to connect with people at BIE. And they were like, oh my God, you should come and be a part of the organization. I was like, are you for real? Like, I was like, that would be absolutely amazing. I was like, but I'm still like, are you sure? Like, I don't feel like I'm ready. Like, I don't feel like I'm like, no enough yet. And they were like, oh my God. Well, I was like, one, they were like, nobody's really doing this in math. Like, and the fact that you're working in it in math just makes you like whatever you're doing. Like we we want to learn from you. So I was like, okay. And the next thing I know, I was in Novato, California for a summit. I think it was like late 2007 or early 2008, like somewhere around there. COVID has messed up my time frame of things. I just remember certain things. Like I started teaching in 2005, and then the years of other stuff is kind of like jumbled. But it was definitely in that time frame, and I've just been like on this. I was a national faculty member for years. With them before coming up again aboard. But like, yes, it was what? Like, and it was just this. Okay, this is how bad it was. Nobody even probably remembers there used to be Skype. So before Zoom, people, there was this tool called Skype that you would get on and talk with video. They even had Skype in education. It was so cool. You could connect with experts. But nobody knew that unless you were like a geeky tech teacher. So I found out about Skype, met again those people online with Skype, and we both just got like so excited because there was only like three of us there. Because again, nobody even knew about Skype or how to use it. So I was so fortunate that there was like nobody on the call, but like me and another teacher, and then the people from BIE at the time. So yeah, I love There's
I
so much to
love
that.
that you're bringing up Skype. We actually, that was when I started podcasting. Skype was the first application we would use to record interviews. It was a very different time, and I'm glad technology has progressed since then. But
Yeah.
one thing that struck me about what you said is that the subject area in which you practiced project-based learning was in math, and that really speaks to me because I think of all the different disciplines, math is one that particularly benefits from an incorporation of project-based learning because what do math students always complain about when you get them in the classroom in math? When are we ever going to use this in real life? And project-based learning is inherently an answer to that question because you do get opportunities to use the math that you're learning. But I know it can also be sort of challenging to create PBL lessons in math. But it's so necessary because a lot of students struggle with that subject. Can you talk about your experience incorporating PBL into math education?
Oh yeah, yeah. And I quickly understood why it's not done in math a lot because our background, we have usually learned math in segments and not in a holistic way. So
Hmm.
PBL forces the subject area to be holistic, not in a compartment. I mean, you could even think about it in life, how much, if you just have a house project, how many different math concepts you're using from, purchasing the materials, budgeting out, painting, measuring. Like, you're mixing geometry and numeracy and even algebra, even though you don't know you're solving for X, but you're mixing algebra in there too. And so math people don't really like think of it that way. They just think of it as, okay, let me do one step equation, then let me do two-step equation, then let me do, they don't see the interchangeability of the concepts together. So that's one reason why people like don't get into it. But that's also how you approach doing it, which is another reason why I stepped out to do it because it is a different way of thinking. And I want to take that lift off of teachers and create units that already integrated the math for you. So you have to look at your chapters differently. You have to look at it as how do they go together rather than how they be discrete. And then look and see when it takes about 3 weeks of this concept to sort of like jive together. And there's your project content. And then the rub is, okay, well, where can this project live in life? And again, that's the other hurdle that sometimes happen with teachers and why I'm glad I tried to take that off. And that's where the project takes on its magic. Once you have that content mixed with what it is that happens in an authentic way, then now it's like boom, boom, boom on the planning. You immediately think of what students got to create. That thing that they create becomes like the mold that drives the learning, and it's like the vehicle that they keep coming back to, and they keep going into pieces until they reach to that final look of it, which is high quality and enhanced. That's the other piece that is so amazing, what kids could create in a high quality way. Not the Again, don't think of the posters that be outside of the classroom. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking we're
Oh
not talking
my
about that.
god.
We're talking about high high quality, professional, like used in the real world type of product and creation. And then they get to share that with an authentic audience. Again, it's just so mind-boggling. It's 17, I do know the number how years I've been in education, even though I don't like saying that number. 17 years I've been doing this, and it just gets better and better.
I love the idea of a PBL based lesson or series of lessons in math built around building something, right? Like a house, right? You could, within a house, there are an infinite number of math lessons that can be taught. And by the way, there are math lessons that run through many different subject areas of math. You could get students doing basic arithmetic. You know, how much lumber do you need? You move them right into geometry and algebra to measure angles. You could do some trig in there, some calculus. Like there's so many possibilities. Yeah, you could build a whole math class out of building something in PBL, and students are going to be so much more engaged by that than they would be just by learning theory or reading stuff off of posters. That's so cool to me. Now, I can already hear the math teachers just cheering at this notion of, oh my God, this is so enlightening. I want to do more PBL in my math classroom. But it can be overwhelming, right? Like the idea of having to completely renovate your curriculum and, start from scratch. Do you have any advice for the teachers out there who like what you're hearing about PBL and math, but want to dip their toe in the water? What are some easy things that they can do to infuse a little bit of PBL into their math curriculum without completely having to tear their lesson plans apart day one?
Oh my God. See, okay, now did you like read my book or something? Like that's what it sounds like. You read my book and you're like, let me come up with these questions based upon Telannia's book. So that literally was the thought of the entire book series. So it's called Project-Based Learning in the Math Classroom. But it's a series because it's divided by grade level. So there are K through 2 level, there's a 3 through 5, and then 6 through 10. And so you can pick which one fits your grade level, but I have to admit there's some good stuff in all of them if you just want to buy them all, because we have different examples in each. So in addition to helping you understand the basics of understanding of PBL, walking you through an experience, because that's another heavy lift. Teachers have a hard time understanding like this switch in teaching. So we have what we call experience PBL chapter, so they can be like a student, or they can stay a teacher, but kind of see what it looks like to run through it. And then we have what I call tasks. Tasks are like 3 to 5 days long, not weeks long. You can get it done in a week. And we have like all of it explained in the task of what to do. And then you could try it that way. Another thing that I usually tell people, and this is more like definitely directed when I'm in the PBL workspace, we have a framework called Gold Standard PBL. And I just tell people, I was like, it's just great practices put together. Like each of them could land on their own. So you could also just look at this upcoming chapter and see what elements really could enhance that chapter. Could it be enhanced by kids reflecting more? Could it be enhanced by kids critiquing and revising their thought process or their work? Could it be enhanced by maybe you don't tell them everything? Maybe they start to be I call them sustained inquirers. Basically, they come up with questions and they try to work on figuring out their answers through technology. Like Desmos has great inquiry activity, so does Texas Instrument. They can end up sort of like immersing themselves in the thought and let them be the sort of tool drivers. Or maybe they go ahead and publicly say something to someone the next classroom, or you bring someone in as a guest speaker and they start to have like a public audience aspect to it. So pick an element, any element. You don't even have to let me see. But you could pick one and then you could try it out, or you could try out a 3 to 5 day task that have some of the elements already built in for you and execute it that way. It's easy to get started.
That's great. I love when teachers can get easy points of entry into new things so that they don't feel like they have to completely start over and just give up on what they might have already that already sort of works, and allow them to, as I said before, dip their toe in the water. I think that's fantastic. Our guest has been Telannia Norfar. She's the curriculum director of PBL Works. You can find out more about her work by visiting www.pblworks.com. This has been so awesome. I've loved exploring this with you. It is so nice to find a fellow kindred spirit when it comes to project-based learning. I attribute so much of the success of my students in the classes I've taught to this concept, so I'm glad we have somebody out there like you with so much enthusiasm to continue to spread this to more and more teachers. It's fantastic. Before we let you go, I got one last question for you, and given what you've told us so far, I'm particularly interested in your answer. If with the snap of your fingers, Telannia, you could make any change to the education system, what change would it be?
Ooh, I love that kind of power.
I bet.
Yeah. That's like, it's kind of like Superman. I would want to fly. I would want to do laser. Like, yeah, if you gave me the ability to have any sort of superpower one. This has been something that's really hitting me, especially after COVID. And I don't know how many teachers are out there listening to this right now who taught before COVID and is teaching now after COVID. It's very different. Like, it's still very different landscape of education. And I thought it was going to change even when I left last school year, but it hasn't. And I think that's a good thing. And I say this because I think what I would snap with my fingers is an opportunity right now. We don't have to wait for someone else. I think it could be us. And it's rather, I would love to get rid of testing completely. Like, that's the thing I'm snapping my fingers on. But even without the removal of testing, what I think would be there and you could do now is what I call portfolio-based learning. Students truly integrating a portfolio of what they know and what they're able to do from K all the way through college. Like, let's not even just stop at 12. Let's keep it going through college. And you're like literally displaying and defending to people what you know and show that quality of learning that a test will never show. Like, a test in a moment of time is not a reflection of who that student is or what that school is or what's the capacity that's happening there. But we have the technology. Like, we can't say it no more. COVID got us all getting everybody on tech. Like, we can't act like we don't have no money for tech no more. We now just had an infrastructure bill that's going into place that's bringing access to everywhere. Like, we can't act like we can't do it anymore. And I would give a big shout out to two organizations, since again, I'm saying I think it's something we can start on the road now that has this. One is Envision Learning Network, like Envision, ENVISOION. They are great at that portfolio. Look, they've been working on it for years. They have their students do a portfolio defense at the 8th grade level and at the 12th grade level. That's how they graduate from their school, not the test. And then I have been in love with EL Education for years. They are the best at helping students create high quality work. And they have free resources available on their site. Envisions has some too, but they also have some paid workshops you can go to. And EL also has conferences you can go to. So both of them, you can get some learning in that's both low, like, just print. If all you got money for is to print what they got right now, they got that. But then they also have some resources or conferences you could purchase. And between those two, I think they marry together well to start the process of students not just being test takers anymore, but they're actually demonstrators of what they know. And it's so empowering to see a student say what they know. Or again, on the extreme end, defend what they know. It's beautiful. So that's my snap.
It is beautiful. And the merit in that sort of portfolio-based assessment is quite obvious, and it lends itself so well to project-based learning, right? Because in project-based learning, you're making stuff, and then that stuff can go in your portfolio, and you can then defend it. Like, that, it all connects together so well. Telannia, thank you so much for being on the show this week. This has been such a treat.
I loved it, Ryan. I loved it. Thank you so much.
And thank you all for checking out Big Ideas in Education. We'll see you next week.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.